All right. We're diving deep today, folks, into the world of Bitcoin. Specifically, we're looking at this prediction, this idea that Bitcoin could hit $100,000.
Whoa.
Yeah, you heard that right. $100,000. So we've got this research in front of us. It's called simply Bitcoin $100,000.
Straight to the point.
Yeah, no kidding. And we're going to try to unpack this, figure out what's driving this prediction, and really what it could all mean right now.
Right.
One thing that keeps popping up for me is this halving thing. I don't know. It sounds kind of mysterious, doesn't it?
It does sound mysterious, yeah.
Like, what is halving?
So halving, it all starts with how Bitcoin is made.
Okay.
It's not like printing dollars, you know.
Totally different.
Completely different. Bitcoin has this limited supply built into its code. Only 21 million Bitcoins will ever exist.
Wow. So that's it?
That's it. That's the cap.
21 million. So how does this halving tie into that?
Okay, so new Bitcoins are created through this process called mining.
Mining, like with pickaxes and helmets?
Not quite. It's more like people with powerful computers.
Okay.
They solve these super complex math problems, and by doing that, they're basically verifying Bitcoin transactions, making sure everything's secure.
Ah, so they're like the accountants of the system.
Kinda, yeah. They're rewarded for their work.
Makes sense.
And the reward is, you guessed it, Bitcoin.
New Bitcoin.
Exactly. So every 4 years or so, this reward gets cut in half.
Cut in half.
Yeah, hence the name halving. It's like, boom, suddenly the rate of new Bitcoin creation, it just drops.
So less supply.
Less supply.
Yeah.
And that can potentially drive up the value. It's like a controlled scarcity mechanism.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So does that mean, like, every time there's a halving, Bitcoin's price is guaranteed to just skyrocket?
Not guaranteed, but if you look at the history of Bitcoin, right, you see that these halving events, they're often followed by pretty significant price surges.
Really?
Yeah. Like back in 2016, Bitcoin was around, what, $650?
$650.
And then the year after the halving, bam, it shot up to almost $20,000.
Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty strong correlation.
It's definitely something to pay attention to.
No kidding. Now, we've got to talk about institutions,
Right.
like big companies, investment funds, the whole shebang. What happens when these big players start putting their money into Bitcoin?
Oh, that's huge. It brings this whole other level of legitimacy.
Legitimacy, yeah.
You know, it's not just this fringe asset anymore.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the big guys are saying, hey, this is real.
Exactly. And that attracts even more investors.
Like a snowball effect.
Yeah, it's like a seal of approval from traditional finance.
So beyond just investing, how are these institutions actually using Bitcoin?
Well, some of them are starting to integrate it into their platforms. You know, like payment processors are starting to accept it.
Oh, interesting.
And even some banks, believe it or not.
Vegas.
Yeah, banks are exploring these custody solutions.
Custody.
Meaning they would hold Bitcoin for their clients.
Securely, I imagine.
Yeah, securely, exactly. So this kind of adoption, it just makes Bitcoin more accessible to everyone.
It brings it to the mainstream.
Exactly. It could be a game changer.
Now, speaking of the big picture, it seems like Bitcoin is gaining traction as a safe haven asset,
Absolutely.
especially with all the economic uncertainty in the world.
Yeah, when you see traditional currencies
Yeah.
experiencing high inflation or becoming unstable, people start looking for alternatives.
Right. They need somewhere to put their money.
Exactly. And historically, gold has been that safe haven
Cool. Yeah.
for centuries. And now you have Bitcoin emerging with its limited supply and decentralized nature.
Decentralized, right. It's not controlled by any government.
Exactly. So it's kind of like a digital equivalent of gold.
Okay, I see that. The digital gold idea. But, you know, Bitcoin is known for being a little volatile, right? It goes up and down like a roller coaster.
It does have its swings. That's true.
So can it really be a stable store of value?
Well, in the short term, Bitcoin is definitely more volatile than gold. But if you look at the long-term trend, Bitcoin has consistently gone up in value over time.
Interesting. So it's a long game.
I think so.
You got to zoom out, look at the big picture.
Exactly. And remember, Bitcoin is still relatively young.
Young compared to gold.
Yeah, gold has been around for thousands of years.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's talk about technology, because there have been some major advancements in Bitcoin's infrastructure.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
One thing I keep hearing about is the Lightning Network.
The Lightning Network is super cool.
Tell me more.
It's like this layer built on top of Bitcoin.
Okay.
And it basically allows for much faster transactions.
Faster.
Way faster. And cheaper, too.
So no more waiting forever for transactions to go through.
Exactly.
And no more crazy fees.
Exactly. It could revolutionize how we use Bitcoin every day.
Like imagine buying a cup of coffee with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
No problem.
No problem at all.
That's the future right there.
It could be.
Okay, so we've talked about technology, but of course we have to talk about regulations.
Ah, yes, the big question mark.
Because that can make or break things.
It's a complicated landscape.
Right. Because regulations can be good. They can provide clarity, stability, but they can also be bad.
Absolutely.
If they're too strict, they can stifle innovation.
Totally.
So what are we seeing with Bitcoin?
Well, some countries are embracing it.
Embracing it, yeah.
They see the potential for innovation, for financial inclusion,
Yeah.
and clear, positive regulations that can really boost investor confidence.
It makes people feel more secure.
Exactly.
But then you have other governments that are more hesitant, more restrictive.
Yeah, sometimes it's out of fear.
Fear.
Yeah, or maybe a lack of understanding.
And that can hold things back.
Absolutely.
Finding that right balance is key.
It's essential.
It's like walking a tightrope.
Now, we can't forget about the human factor here.
Right.
Because psychology plays a big role in markets.
Right.
Especially when it comes to something like Bitcoin.
It's like people see the price going up.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to miss out.
Exactly. FOMO, the fear of missing out.
FOMO. It's a real thing.
It's a powerful force.
You see your friends getting in on it, you see the headlines,
Right.
and you just feel this urge
To jump in.
to jump in before it's too late.
Yeah, and that can drive the price up even higher.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
It can be, yeah.
Now, I also want to touch on something that's highlighted in our research here, and that's how Bitcoin is being adopted in countries with, let's say, unstable economies.
Yeah, that's a really important trend.
Or maybe limited access to traditional financial services.
Yeah, imagine you live in a country
Yeah.
where your local currency is losing value rapidly.
Or where you can't easily access your own money.
Exactly. So in those situations, Bitcoin can be a lifeline.
A lifeline, wow.
Yeah. It allows people to preserve their wealth, to send money across borders, to participate in the global economy.
That's powerful stuff.
It is, and that's why this adoption in emerging markets, it could be a major driver of Bitcoin's future growth.
So we've talked about a lot.
We have
Having events creating scarcity. Institutions bringing legitimacy. Bitcoin as a safe haven asset. Technological advancements. The whole digital gold narrative. The psychology of FOMO. And this growing adoption in emerging markets. It's a lot to take in.
It's a complex ecosystem.
It really is.
Yeah.
So given all of this, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin's path forward?
Well, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that predicting the future of Bitcoin is impossible.
Haha. Yeah, it's a wild ride.
But, I mean, the potential is definitely there.
Right. All these factors we've discussed, they're all pointing to an asset that's gaining traction on multiple fronts.
I think so.
So whether Bitcoin hits $100,000 next year or whether it takes a bit longer, I think one thing's for sure, Bitcoin is a force to be reckoned with.
Definitely a force to be reckoned with.
It's changing the way we think about money,
Hmm.
about finance, about the future.
I agree.
It's a technological revolution in a way.
It is.
But it's also a social and economic experiment,
Yep.
and that's what makes it so fascinating. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive for today. We've covered a lot of ground, but clearly there's still much more to explore.
Always more to learn.
Always more to learn, that's for sure. And I think that's the beauty of it, right? Bitcoin keeps us on our toes. It makes us think differently. It challenges the status quo. So whether you're a believer or a skeptic, I think one thing's for certain, the future of finance is going to be interesting.
Absolutely.
All right, that's it for us. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.
Sounds good.